My name is Tom Sullivan. I practiced law in Chicago for the last 2.5 score, plus 4. How many of you have been to Guantanamo Bay? 2. I recently wrote an article in a publication that nobody reads, as far as I can tell. It's called The Circuit Rider, which is the 7th Circuit Bar Association publication. You read it? All right. And so I'm trying to sell this article. So if anybody would like a copy of it, just come up and give me your name and address or email, and I'll send it to you, and then you tell me where I should send it to get it published more widely. But I put it in the second person to describe what it's like to go down to Guantanamo Bay and be there. And those of you who have been there can relate to that. And I also applaud very much my lanceman, Colonel Sullivan. You're not leaving the Army, Marine Corps, are you?
I'm going back into civilian life.
Oh, are you? Okay. I was telling him that when I was in the Army in Korea, just out of law school, I was in the Fort Bliss, Texas legal office as a clerk typist. I was the only lawyer in the office. But anyhow, on the plane coming out, I was reading this book, Fatal Shore, which is a book by Robert Hughes about the settlement of Australia by the British. After the American Revolution, they could no longer send their prisoners to the United States, so they started sending it down to Australia, which was really the start of the settlement of Australia. And it took almost a year for the ship to get down there with all these prisoners. But I thought it was interesting to draw an analogy. Elizabeth Beckford, the second oldest woman on the First Fleet, was 70. Her crime was for which she got 7 years transportation, was to have stolen 12 pounds of Gloucester cheese. At the Stafford Assizes, a laborer named Thomas Haswell went down for 7 years for feloniously stealing 1 live hen to the value of 2D. Now, I'm not sure what D stands for in British currency. What is it? No, I thought it's lower than shillings. And 1 dead hen. Thomas Joseph accosted a married woman on a London street, put her in fear, seized her handkerchief worth 2 shillings. The sentence was death. After 5 years in jail, he was embarked on the Scarborough to serve the Crown for 7 years in New South Wales. My first client, Abdul Hadi al-Sabai, who I went to see in January 2006, was a policeman in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia for 17 years. He was married with 4 children. He went to Afghanistan just before we invaded on a humanitarian mission to help build a mosque and a schoolhouse. He was picked up and sent to Guantanamo Bay. Now, Colonel Sullivan has described the military commissions, and that's all well and good. But most of the people, 95% of the people at Guantanamo Bay, will never see a military commission. They'll just sit in their cells. Al-Sabai's, what they call the CSRT, the Combat Status Review Tribunals, which are a complete joke and a sham. Complete sham. I want to read to you what was said. Now, mind you, he was a policeman, and he got leave to leave for 2 months to go up to Afghanistan and come back. Tribunal President, as to the second request, you asked us to check with the Saudi police in Riyadh. It could prove you're on a humanitarian mission while on leave. Detainee, that's the euphemism for prisoner. Yes. Tribunal President, I denied that request as well, because an employer has no knowledge of what their employees do when they are on leave. Abdul Hadi al-Sabai was encaged in a small cell. The cell runs from about here to over there, and from about here to here. the wiring on it is such that you can't hardly see through it, and if you look through it long enough, it destroys your distance vision. To communicate with other prisoners, you have to shout to the man across from you or the people next to you. Lousy food, lousy medical condition, no matter what, what's his name, Michael Moore says. And yeah, it's really a disservice to the people at Guantanamo Bay, what Moore did in that movie. What I haven't seen it, but what I'm told he did, to pretend as though they get good medical. No exercise to amount to anything, no reading material except the Quran. Abdul Hadi al-Sabai sat in that cage with a Quran for 4.5 years. His daughter, how many of you have daughters, granddaughters? They're beautiful. She grew up from 1 to 5.5 without his seeing her. About a year ago, he was taken from his little cage, put on an airplane, sent back to Riyadh, no notice to me, no explanation, no apology, no compensation. These people that were sent down, as they say, had a trial in front of a judge in England. The sentences were terrifically harsh, but at least they were convicted of doing something. Abdul Hadi al-Sabai was sold for $5,000 over in Pakistan, from which he had fled when we invaded, and sat in a cage for 4.5 years for doing nothing.